Hello and welcome. My name is Peace Mitchell and I'm co-founder of Women Changing the World Press. Before we begin today, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners and elders past and present of the land that I live and work on, the people of Mamu country in North Queensland. I'd also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners and elders right across Australia and the Torres Strait. Well, today we are very excited to be celebrating the launch of our new book, Women Living Fearlessly. This book includes the stories of 25 incredible women from all over the world who share their story of living a fearless life and stepping into their power and following all of their dreams. I'm so excited to have one of my fabulous co-authors with me here today. Please join me on stage, Justine.
Hi, Peace. How you going? Great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here, Justine. For people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. I am Justine Cox, and I have the pleasure to live and work on in the south coast of New South Wales, which is Marmarine country. And I'm a leadership expert. And what I really help is I've helped managers focus on building better relationships and improving trust in their teams.
I love that. I love that you're working with people to help them build more trust in their team. Your title for your chapter is A Journey of Strength and Kindness. Can you tell us why you chose this title for your story?
Absolutely. One of the things that I always talk about in my work with managers and leaders is that leadership requires you to be strong and kind, and that they are not mutually exclusive. And I came to that conclusion because of my own life journey. I've been, like many people and a lot of the authors in the book, I've been through amazing highs and very low lows. And getting that balance of strength and kindness has been something that I've been working on and that I bring into my work. So I thought it was a great title for the chapter.
Yeah, I agree. It is a great title for your chapter. Strength and kindness are incredible values that can absolutely work together. Now, in your chapter, you talk about your childhood and about your dad and the influence he had on your life. And something that he always used to say to you was, if you sign up to be a part of a team, they deserve your best every time. Can you tell us about your childhood and the impact your dad had in your life?
Yeah, I grew up on the South Coast. So I actually came back to the place that I grew up about, God, I was 12 years ago after a long time away. And we were a sporting family. My dad was a rugby league player. I basically grew up on the side of the field of the rugby league team. My mum played sports. She played hockey and netball, basketball, squash. We played touch football. So we played a lot of team sport. Dad is extremely committed to his sport, and it was something that defined him. And he was very clear with us from a very young age that being part of a sporting team was a privilege and that you had to give your best every time. And he would get upset with us, actually, if we kind of showed up half-hearted. So it was kind of drummed into me from a very young age. And I guess I didn't question it. And I'm very achievement orientated. So I guess that also propelled me in that direction.
Amazing. I think that love of sport and that involvement in sport has really helped you to become the leader you are today. And in your chapter, you talk about a moment when you were 15 and you had to have a difficult conversation as the leader of your netball team. Can you tell us more about this time and that difficult conversation you had to have?
Yeah, like 15-year-old girls. I'm thinking back now, it makes me nervous. And it was the rep team. And look, one of the girls, some of the other girls thought that one of the team members wasn't pulling her weight. And as the leader of the team, which I didn't really sign up for, I actually don't remember how I became the leader. It sort of just happened. which happens to me a lot sometimes. But they were like, well, you have to deal with this, right? Because they clearly didn't want to. And what I learned, one, is we tend to build up a story in our head about how hard that conversation is going to be, which increases our level of anxiety and fear. And so I had the conversation, or one, because I didn't want to let my other teammates down. And, as a 15-year-old girl, you're looking to fit in. And you're looking for acceptance from your peers. So I approached that conversation. If all honesty, it was more about making sure my peers accepted me than some desire to have a tough conversation. But I had it with the person, and it was nowhere near as bad as what I had dreamed up in my head. But I also learnt in that you never know what's going on for someone else. And so leading a tough conversation by creating space for people to tell you what's going on for them before you get into the nitty-gritty can really be beneficial.
That's such great advice. I think you're right. People are afraid to have those difficult conversations. And so often they will delay that from happening. And the more that time goes on, the worse the problem can become. So that when they do finally get around to having the difficult conversation, it's way too late and things are a lot worse. Whereas if they can get in and just take the initiative and have that conversation up front, it can be a lot easier.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can have a conversation about something before it becomes a problem, you're going to be way ahead of the game. And one of the things that I do now with my leaders is trust in particular is one of those things that can become an elephant in the room. People will often not talk about trust until it's a problem. And so one of the things I do now, and in some ways it extends back from that original tough conversation, is I get trust on the table early. Right. So if I talk up front about the fact that I'm somebody who gives my trust away. Other leaders, they don't give their trust away easily. People need to earn it from them, or that's what they think. Ultimately, they're deciding when to give it away. But I talk about that really early, and I talk about trust a lot, so that if it does become a problem, you've already talked about it. Already laid a foundation for the fact that trust is something you will talk about, that it's going to be. There'll be times when trust is strong and there's times when it dips, and it's okay and we can talk about it. I think that's something that's been a really powerful lesson for me throughout my journey as a leader.
Yeah, communication is so important. But I love that you touched on the importance of compassion before as well. So leading with compassion, because it's true, we don't know what's going on. We have no idea what's going on in other people's lives, and giving them the opportunity to be open and honest about what's happening for them is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, most people want to share. They just, they want to share, but you've got to create a safe space for them to step into. And so that's where that trust, if you've got a foundation of trust, you've got half a chance. But then creating those safe spaces. And, one of the things I think as leaders, we often think we're going to do all the talking. But actually, the best leaders talk less and listen more. And when you listen, and you create that space where you're going to listen instead of wanting to fill it up with words, it creates a space that people can step into to share. And ultimately, that's what you want. As a leader, it's not my journey. My role is to help my team members be at their best more often. Right. And some of that is, one, getting out of their way. But two, creating that environment where they can do that and where they can share and grow and, spitball different ideas that they've got in a safe space. And they won't do that if you don't have that environment of compassion, empathy. I wrap it up in kindness. I think kindness to me is about accepting we are human, that comes with emotions, and also that we don't always need to agree. I think in leadership, people think, I need people to agree with me. No, what you need is to create a good, solid understanding. So I want people to understand me. They won't always agree with me. But as long as we understand each other and we can find a place to work together from there, then, things are looking better.
Yeah, amazing. So in your chapter, you talk about a difficult time in your life. You were only 30 years old when you lost your mum. Can you
Mm.
tell us about this time?
Yeah, I might get a little bit emotional, because it was quite emotional for me when I was writing that. Um,
Mm,
I'd been back in the country a couple of years after I backpacked. I was living in Sydney, and I had just turned 30, and I had gone to Vanuatu with a girlfriend. And I came home, and I got a call to say that mum was getting some scans done. I didn't even know she was getting them done, because I think she was trying to hide things from me in retrospect. And that her friend that was with her was worried about her because she'd been in there for hours and hadn't come out. And her friend just had this sense that I should come. And I was in Sydney, and I was going home for the weekend anyway. So I jumped in the car early and I drove to Wollongong where she was. And when I got there, the doctor said to me, "Are you Shirley Cox's daughter?" I said, "Yes." They took me into a room, and within about 3 minutes, told us both that she had cancer, that if she didn't get operated on, immediately she was going to lose the use of her legs. She then had an operation, ended up arresting on the table, and was on life support for a period of time and in hospital for a long time. But it started a 3-year journey of hers, where she was battling cancer, which unfortunately she lost. And, I look back at that time, and uh, some of it was difficult and painful, but there's moments of joy and experiences that we probably wouldn't have had, conversations we wouldn't have had unless we knew death was coming. So it was a really interesting time, but there's no doubt that I felt at that time I lost my lighthouse. Like mum, I used to describe her as my rock. She was the person I could come home to. My mum was um, a really good sounding board. She never I don't ever remember her, like, as I got older. Obviously, when I was younger, it's different, but as I got older and became an adult, she didn't tell me what she thought I should do. She would listen to me, she would offer support, but she allowed me to kind of make my own way. She was very non-judgmental, um, and I just felt there was this void that settled over me that was inescapable, and really created big challenge for me personally for probably the next 10 years piece, to be fair. Um, you just can't underestimate how much something like that will impact you and how you can manage it. I've always been known as someone who's really strong and capable, and I pride myself on that. And in those moments, I couldn't do that for myself. I
mm.
just couldn't. I went to a really bad place.
Yeah, it sounds like such a difficult time, Justine. And you continued working. You worked your way up through HR roles to general manager position, um, and then you found yourself that burnt out. It demanded too much, and combined with the crumbling marriage as well, you were facing all sorts of challenges. Can you tell us about this experience and how you overcame all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I landed there because I used work to help me get through mum. So I found that when I leaned into my leadership and into my professional career, I could escape what was happening at home. So I really went hard there. But eventually that you can't last forever. I was in a marriage that wasn't working, and eventually everything crumbled, and I you know I in some ways, it's hard to even say now, but I got to the point where I actually didn't wanna be on this earth, and I can honestly say I've never felt that before or after that point, but it was a really low point, and I did consider it. That's the honest truth, but, you know, naturally, I'm a fighter, and I took myself away. It was Bali that I chose. I went for a week. I went to this beautiful retreat, which was a female only retreat built specifically for females who were traveling solo. So there was this, you could be there on your own, but there were people that, have dinner with, and there was a host and massages. And I realized then that it was the first time in my life that I never had a goal. Very goal driven. It did come back from my dad and sporting days. So I realized, okay, I just need to set a goal, because by that point I was determined to make sure that my experiences helped me be better and didn't break me. And I also wanted to honor mum. I really thought, if what would she want me to do? And she wouldn't want me to give up and crumble. Mum was an incredibly strong woman, so that really helped get me through that period.
Wow. And, you talk about the importance of setting goals in your recovery and your journey back to finding your way. And you also talk about the three Ps. Can you tell us what the three Ps are and the part that they play?
Yeah, so I am a relationship centered leader. That's the leadership that I really lean into, that I specialize in, that I advocate for. And I realized that when I came back after Bali, I the first thing I tackled was work. That was obviously the easiest one, right? Is because the relationship was going to be much more difficult to unravel. And I realized that I could do the leadership role. I could do a big role, but I needed a system. And so the three Ps really came in when I was looking for a way to systematize my leadership. And what I mean by that is identify the handful of things that I could, if I did them consistently and did them well, they would make the biggest impact. And so that's where the three Ps started. And so the three Ps are purpose, people, process. And what I learnt at that time, I was working in a large not-for-profit, and I realized that when things got really tough, my people leaned into the reason we were doing it, or the people that we were supporting. And it highlighted to me that purpose was important. And I also knew from my own training that as adults, we need to know why. So I first started on what was my purpose, and making sure that I shared that, not only overall for my role, but for any of the big projects or the big moves that I wanted to make. I wanted to be really clear on the purpose. The second piece was around people. As I said, leadership is about relationships. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And so, in terms of people, the first thing is focusing the spotlight on me. Where was I at? What did I need? What did I need for me so I could be at my best more often? And then, did I have the right people in my team? So that was two-pronged, and making sure that I had the right people in the right role and that I was set up to be at my best. And the third P is around process. What are the processes we couldn't put in place to make sure that we can get the work done as efficiently and effectively as possible? And some of that was around healthy habits. So for me at home, making sure that I had a really good morning routine, I was exercising, I was eating well, I was sleeping well. And then similarly at work, what were the habits we had? One thing for me was around meetings. You can have a death by meeting in any role. Streamlining our meetings and ensuring that they had purpose and meaning, and they were outcome driven, was one of the healthy habits I put into place at work as well.
Amazing. I love those three Ps. It's such a simple formula, but really it covers everything: the purpose, the people, and the processes, and putting it all together.
Absolutely. And now I use that regularly, right? So I use it in my own business, I use it in how I develop my programs, and I use it to support my people. And when I'm coaching, if a particular issue comes up, I kind of work through those three Ps. It's like, okay, well, so what is the purpose here? Why are we here? What, that kind of thing. And then who are the people? What are the processes? What have we done to date? What do we need to do in the future? It's really helped guide me. It's been very effective.
Yeah, such a great framework. Well, thank you so much for being here, Justine. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And thank you for sharing your chapter in Women Living Fearlessly as well. I know that our readers are going to find it so inspiring.
Oh, thank you, Peace. I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to contribute, and also to get to know some of the other amazing female leaders that are in this book. It was a really good process for me. It's been one, a little bit cathartic, but it's also helped me refocus in on some of my own strengths and superpowers, and to lean into them a little more and embrace my story. There's things in the book that I've never told people before. And so I'm hoping by showing a little bit of that vulnerability, that I will encourage other women to do the same, because as I tell my leaders that I work with, we are all capable of way more than we can even imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. We sure are. No, I love that so much. Well, thank you so much again, Justine. Thank you for everybody who's tuned in as well. Make sure you grab your copy of Women Living Fearlessly so you can read Justine's story and the story of the other incredible women in this book. You can find it at wcwpress.com. All right. Well, thanks so much, Justine. We'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.
Bye, peace.
Bye.